The lights fade, the music stops, and the runway falls silent. A woman once hailed as the face of Europe stands not before cameras, but beneath the blue flag of the European Union. Her walk, once measured in catwalk steps, now carries the weight of politics. Her name is Carmen Kass, the supermodel from Estonia whose icy stare ruled Chanel, Gucci, and Dior. But in 2004, she did something no one expected. She traded the runway for a balance. How did one of fashion's brightest stars go from front-row glamour to a political campaign in post-Soviet Europe? Was it ambition or rebellion? A statement of power or a search for meaning? This is the story of the woman who turned the catwalk into a political stage and proved that beauty can be both weapon and voice. She wasn't born into glamour. Carmen Kass came into the world on September 14, 1978 in Paide, a quiet town in what was then Soviet-occupied Estonia. Her childhood unfolded in the nearby village of Ma, surrounded by gray skies, silence, and the strictness of a country still behind the Iron Curtain. Her father was a chess teacher, a man of patience and logic. Her mother, who later became a chess referee, instilled in her discipline and precision. Those same traits would one day define her presence on the runway: cold, calculating, and magnetic. But as a child, Carmen never dreamed of Paris or Milan. She once said she didn't even know modeling existed. Beauty in the Soviet era wasn't a profession, it was a distraction. At 14, everything changed. While shopping in a small supermarket in Tallinn, she was discovered by an Italian scout. He offered her a chance to model abroad, a fantasy that sounded impossible for a girl who had never left her country. Her first trip to Milan ended in disappointment. She didn't speak Italian, had no money, and the industry wasn't ready for an unknown girl from Estonia. She returned home defeated, her dreams nearly extinguished before they began. But Carmen Kass had something the world hadn't seen yet: the steely will of a Baltic survivor. When Carmen Kass arrived in Paris in the mid-1990s, the fashion world was shifting. The era of the big six supermodels, Naomi, Claudia, Cindy, Christy, Linda, and Kate, was fading, making space for a new kind of beauty: minimalist, modern, and slightly detached. Carmen embodied it perfectly. Her face, sharp as geometry, calm as ice, seemed sculpted for the new millennium. Photographers called her the Baltic Storm. Designers called her the Silent Revolution. By 1997, she was walking for Chanel, Prada, and Givenchy. By 1999, her image dominated magazine covers from Paris to New York. Then came the campaigns, the kind that make legends: Gucci, Versace, Valentino, Fendi, Dior, Yves Saint Laurent, Calvin Klein. Her stare could freeze a camera. Her walk, effortless but commanding, became instantly recognizable. She wasn't the loudest model on the runway, but she didn't need to be. She moved like someone who already knew the world was watching. In 2000, Vogue US declared her one of the faces defining a new decade, alongside Gisele Bündchen. The same year, she won the VH1 Vogue Model of the Year award, confirming what the industry already knew. Carmen Kass was not just another model, she was the aesthetic of the future. She became a fixture at the Victoria's Secret fashion shows in 1999, 2000, 2002, 2003, and 2008, a rare mix of high fashion sophistication and mainstream appeal. But unlike many of her peers,
Carmen treated modeling like a strategy, not a lifestyle. She invested in Baltic Models, the very agency that first represented her, helping scout new talent from her homeland. Amid flashing lights and global fame, she stayed rooted in her Baltic coolness. No scandals, no chaos, only quiet ambition. But beneath that calm exterior, something was shifting. While the world celebrated Carmen Kass, the model, she was already dreaming of something else. A different kind of stage, with no cameras, no applause, and much higher stakes. By the early 2000s, Carmen Kass had achieved what most models could only dream of: magazine covers, fashion campaigns, runways from New York to Milan. But beneath the glamour, she was restless. She once said, "Modeling is not a life, it's a job, one that ends the moment you take off the makeup." In 2004, Estonia, her small homeland newly independent from Soviet rule, was about to join the European Union. The air was filled with pride and change, and in a move that stunned the fashion world, Carmen Kass announced she was running for the European Parliament under the Respublika Party. A supermodel in politics? The media swarmed. Headlines labeled her everything from the face of a new Europe to a publicity stunt in heels. But Carmen didn't flinch. She spoke calmly, without spectacle, about a stronger, more visible Estonia. Her campaign slogan focused on youth participation, transparency, and European unity. Behind the polished image stood a woman shaped by survival, a child of the Soviet era, who had witnessed a country rebuild itself from ashes. To her, politics wasn't a photo op, it was a continuation of that rebuilding. Still, the public wasn't convinced. She won 2,315 votes, respectable, but far from enough. Estonia's first European election ended without her name on the list of delegates. The press called it a beautiful failure. For Carmen, it wasn't failure. It was exposure to the weight of cynicism, to how quickly admiration turns to ridicule. The same industry that once praised her perfection now questioned her intelligence. Was she just a mannequin trying to play politician? And yet, instead of retreating, she redirected her focus, not toward fashion, but toward strategy. That same year, she became president of the Estonian Chess Federation, a role she would hold for nearly a decade. It was a symbolic move, intellect over image. She even lobbied for Tallinn to host the Chess Olympiad in 2008, though the bid ultimately went to Dresden, Germany. But through all of it, the political headlines, the scrutiny, the failure, Carmen Kass never lashed out, never dramatized. She simply vanished from the tabloids, trading haute couture for quiet influence. The world that once photographed her every move barely noticed when she stopped walking the runway. To many, it looked like an ending. To her, it was only a transformation. Carmen Kass never called it a comeback because she never truly disappeared. After the noise of politics and the flash of fashion faded, she quietly built a different kind of legacy, one rooted in intellect, independence, and identity. As president of the Estonian Chess Federation, she devoted nearly a decade to promoting the game across her homeland. It was more than symbolism. For Carmen, chess represented everything the fashion world often ignored: patience, depth, and foresight. While others chased trends, she studied moves. In interviews, she compared modeling to chess. Both are about strategy. You have to think 3 steps ahead. Her influence began to stretch far beyond the runway. She became an emblem of Baltic resilience, the girl from a Soviet supermarket who turned her fame into something meaningful. She invested in Estonian businesses, supported the arts, and used her platform to advocate for the visibility of small European nations. Occasionally, she'd return to modeling, not for the paycheck, but to remind the industry that she still belonged to its DNA. When she reappeared in select campaigns for Michael Kors and Balmain, her presence carried more gravity than ever. This was no longer the icy young girl from Paris. This was a woman who had seen the machinery of fame and learned how to walk away from it unbroken. While many supermodels of her era struggled to maintain relevance, Carmen seemed to find peace in distance. She didn't crave attention, she curated it. And in that quiet, she reclaimed her power. She once remarked, "I've never liked being told what to do, not on a runway and not in life." That sentence, simple as it was, explained everything. Carmen Kass had turned her career into a mirror of her philosophy, elegant, deliberate, and entirely her own design.
Carmen Kass will never be remembered as just a model. She became something rarer, a woman who stepped outside the boundaries of beauty and dared to question what power could look like. Her career is a paradox, both fleeting and timeless. On one hand, she defines the minimalist aesthetic of late 90s fashion: clean lines, sharp angles, intelligence in every movement. On the other, she shattered the stereotype of the silent model. She spoke, acted, and challenged the idea that beauty and intellect couldn't coexist. In the Baltic world, she remains a national figure, the girl who carried Estonia's flag onto the global stage, then tried to carry its voice into Europe. Even without winning office, her message endured, that visibility can be used for more than vanity. Fashion never fully let go of her. Decades later, her image still circulates in mood boards and archives, her walk studied by young models who crave that same effortless command. She didn't chase trends, she became one. And perhaps that is Carmen Kass's true legacy. She proved that grace doesn't fade when the spotlight dims. It transforms. From the catwalk to the chessboard, from magazine covers to campaign posters, her story stands as a quiet rebellion against limits. She didn't just walk the runway, she walked beyond it and never looked back.